Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, dayan ha'emet. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, who is a righteous judge. We say these words when we hear that someone has died, to acknowledge that in our moment of grief, there is still faith and there is still trust. There are questions beyond our understanding when we enter this world, and when we leave it, we will never fully comprehend. But we trust in a God who is a righteous judge, who watches over us in life, and who is with us in death. Joanne and Debbie and family, we gather to remember Raymond. And we who gather with you, we know that you grieve in a darkened world today. We understand that in your silence there is sadness, and in your tears loneliness. We gather with you that we might comfort you, that we might embrace you and hug you, and that you might feel our loving embrace and be comforted by it. And we are with you today and in the days to come, not only that we might comfort you, but to call upon God on your behalf, and to ask that you feel God's presence, and that this too should be a comfort. Your father was a loving husband and father, grandfather and great-grandfather several times over. And he lived his life in a way and shared his love with all of you in a way that death does not sever. And that love remains with you, changed to be sure. But his love that he had for you and the love you had for him, that does not die. That lives on. You are blessed with a lifetime of memories. Things that Raymond did that brought joy into your lives, that brought smiles to your faces, that sometimes drove you crazy too. But all of those things that he did that made your lives so wonderful, they are a precious memory. And you are blessed to have them. And so today is a day of grief and sorrow and tears, but it is also a day that we reach deep into ourselves to also find gratitude and gratefulness for the gift of his life. A life that was long-lived, but more importantly, well-lived and richly lived. He shared with all of us the gifts of his heart and his mind, and they will forever be a precious memory and a precious legacy. In grief, we turn to the Psalms. I'd like to recite the 23rd Psalm in Hebrew and then in English. Some of you may know it, and you are certainly welcome to join with me in its recitation. I offer this in Raymond's memory. Adonai ro'i lo echsar binot deshe yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yenahaleni, nafshi yeshovev. Yancheni v'ma'agalei tzedek lema'an shemo, gam ki elech begeit salmavet lo irara ki ata imadi, shiftecha umishantecha, hema yanachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neget sorerai, Dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yerdefuni kol yemei chayai. V'shafti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. I'd like to call upon Debbie and Joanne to share words of tribute.
Everyone came out on such a cold day. I'm sorry it had to be so cold. Should have been in Florida. It says a lot that all my friends refer to my dad as Papa Ray. Everyone loved him for his wonderful smile, his generous heart, and his kind spirit. He was also very funny and seemed to have a song for every occasion. Whenever we'd sit down at a family dinner, whether there were guests or not, he always started to say, "Hey, did you hear about the guy who?" And my mom would always stop him with a stern look and say, "Raymond, no, stop." But we'd egg him on because those jokes, dirty or not, always made us laugh. He could barely get to the punchline because he'd start laughing so hard his face would turn red in the middle of the joke. And they were usually dirty. There wasn't a thing that my dad wouldn't do for my sisters, my kids, or me. When I had to put my last golden retriever to sleep, he couldn't stand seeing me so unhappy. So after a month, he called a friend of mine and on the phone and instructed her to take me to go buy another golden retriever the next day and told her, "Don't come home without one. I can't stand to see my daughter so upset." So we went and got a puppy. After we had to put that dog to sleep, he told me to find the best breeder and buy the finest golden retriever I could find. When I told him it was so expensive I couldn't afford it, that those breeders insisted on charging you so much money, he said, "I'll pay half, and I'll own the back but half." And he did. I still have memories of him down in our basement, in our old house, with a huge gas mask, pushing sewage down the drain that had backed up from our septic tank. That was a vision. I can still smell the stinky cigars from his weekly poker games down that same basement with some of you old friends that I saw come in. Up until very recently, he still maintains a friendship with those same guys from our original house on Verona Road in South Euclid. His joy at seeing his grandchildren knew no bounds. Whenever he would see Amanda or Julie after not having seen them for a while, there were always tears of joy running down his face. He came to meet each of his great-grandchildren the day after they were born, no matter that some of them were far out of town. The look on his face when he held those babies just said it all. Life just didn't get much better than that. My dad introduced us to Broadway theater plays and traveling when we were young. He wanted us to see the world and everything and experience everything we could. The finest restaurants, the best seats in the house for a play, the best cars to drive. When I was in junior high school, I remember him coming into my bedroom when he got home from work. He used to pull up a chair from my desk and ask me how my day was. If we had a problem, we would always talk about it, and we'd find a solution. He'd help me solve it. I know I was the apple of his eye. Sorry. But maybe he told you that.
Two apples.
Maybe he told you that.
2 apples.
He might have told you the same thing. And he did give the best bear hugs of anyone ever. Since I was so very blessed to have him in my life for so long, I think it makes it that much harder to say goodbye. Next to my husband, he was the number one guy in my life. I know he will still walk beside me, telling me, "Don't worry, you're going to be okay." I'm going to miss those hugs and those long talks, his big smile, traveling down to Florida to visit him and my mom. Yes, Daddy, I was so very fortunate to have had 2 wonderful men in my life who always made me feel special and loved. After the last few months of illnesses and hospitals and finally the awful hospice place, you deserve to rest in peace. I will hold on to the memories that we made and love you forever, Daddy. You were definitely the best.
Okay. Tough act to follow. You just going to leave me up here? It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. We didn't do a dress rehearsal. We didn't know the script. Okay, first of all, thank you all for coming today. My mother is not able to make the trip from Florida. If you ask me, is there something you can do for me today? There is one thing, and there's only one thing I want today. If you know my parents, please call my mother in Florida or send her a card or a note. That's all I want. She's in Florida grieving, and it's important that she's not forgotten because she is not here today and could not be here. If you want her address or phone number, see me or Debbie, either after today if we're still around, or at Shiva, or call us on the phone. This is what I want you to know about my dad, Papa Ray, from me. He was a graduate of Western Reserve School of Pharmacy and owned his own drugstore for many years. He met my mother at the Flora Stone Mather College and married her 69 years ago. These two schools are now Case Western Reserve, where I work. Isn't that ironic? My dad was a veteran of World War II. He was in aircraft intelligence in the Army. And like Debbie said, my dad's greatest joy was his family, his wife, his daughters, his grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren. There is nothing he loved more than his family. Papa Ray became Ra-Ra 8 years ago when his first grandchild was born. When Jordan was little, she couldn't say the letter P for Papa, so she called my dad Ra-Ra, and we've called my dad Ra-Ra ever since. When I think of my dad, I have so many wonderful memories of the last 61 years of all the dad things he did with me and our family. He was a great teacher to us and made us who we are today. His repetitive way of teaching us drove us all crazy, and we still laugh about his ways. He taught me how to run the cash register in his drugstore and make change. This was once I was old enough to be promoted from pill bottle duster and pop cooler filler. He helped me with my math homework often, and I still can't figure out how to do those story problems to this day. He taught me how to use a checkbook and balance it before sending me off to college. He taught me how to water ski when I was 8, and we enjoyed many family vacations in Lake Chautauqua every summer, where he would rent a ski boat and we would just ski solidly for a week with the Weintraub family. I remember him riding all the roller coasters with me at Cedar Point. I remember he gave me the most beautiful wedding in 1989. He will be in my heart at my next beautiful wedding on July 8th of next year. My dad was the best dad, husband, grandfather, and great-grandfather. And I'm so glad he got to see his granddaughters and their 5 kids last July when Bubby, my sister, took them all to Florida to visit my parents. My dad lived a great and long life, and I'm so glad he didn't realize how sick he was the last few weeks. We love him with all our heart, and we'll miss him every day for the rest of our lives.
Joanne and Debbie, thank you. Tradition teaches that words that come from the heart enter directly into the heart. Though it was a bit sad and bittersweet when I met with all of you yesterday and we brought Amanda into the living room via FaceTime, I asked Julie, how do you want your grandpa remembered? And you lit up and a smile came across your face and you said he was super cute. He had the happiest face. I'm going to say a few more words, but really I could stop right there. He was, as you have heard, a wonderful father. And of course, he loved his granddaughters. I don't know whether it was your grandpa or your dad. Somebody said to you, you have to marry Dans. And so you did. Tradition teaches that children are our investment in the future, and grandchildren, the dividend on that investment, and great-grandchildren must be some kind of wild compound interest. And how rich Raymond and Ruth were in that regard. Abigail and Haley and Zachary and Jordan and Remy, who I know we'll see some of them in a little bit. And there's no doubt that he loved his own children. But you, his granddaughters, and the children you brought into the world had a very special place in his heart and his soul. Nothing could make him light up like those great-grandchildren. And when you were growing up, he made sure you had wonderful trips to New York City, experiences there, things that he arranged for you that he wanted to make sure that you were cultured people. So, of course, that included Broadway, Ellis Island to understand your history, Tavern on the Green. That's a pretty good culture. And fancy meals at the Four Seasons, so you should know how to eat properly and with etiquette. And bus trips that he would arrange, and trips to St. Thomas and so on. I guess he considered it a form of high culture to make sure that you knew how to play cards, especially gin rummy. That's a good thing to know how to do. And Raymond, let it be remembered on this cold, blustery day, was a golfer. Now, whether it was a good day or bad, windy or still, he always golfed 103. That's what he said. Debbie, I think you believed him. Joanne, you said no, he lied about his score. 103. He and Ruth, with dear friends, would fly out for years to the Indianapolis 500 to watch the race. And he and Ruth would take, without all of the children and grandchildren, an annual trip in early summer to New York City. They'd go for 4 days, 5 days, and squeeze in 6 or 7 plays, as many plays as they could get, and some good meals. They traveled the world together. You referenced his wonderful sense of humor, and yet there's not one joke he told that you told me I could tell here today. None of them would be appropriate, so I shall leave them behind. He was a proud father, of course, not only to the two of you, but to your sister Marjorie, of blessed memory. By the way, if you did not go on those trips with him and Ruth and the family, he had slideshows he was more than happy to share with you, impose upon you, hundreds upon hundreds of slides. He was a man of great generosity, and he was devoted to his family in every possible way, not just with his generosity, though it included that, but more than generous with material goods. He was generous with his love and his heart and his spirit and his soul, and that's what he shared with all of you. I hope that in the coming days and weeks, the challenges of his last few days in hospice and the couple of months before that, I hope those memories will recede into the background and they'll leave the forefront of your mind, and instead you'll remember Raymond in the fullness of his life with that super cute face of his and that wonderful, happy, broad smile. let that be what you remember. The rabbis talk about the Keter Shem Tov, the crown of a good name, that some people in the way they live and the way they love earn for themselves in the years granted to them. Raymond earned his crown of a good name 1,000 times over. And the crown of his good name is bequeathed to all of you. And with every generous deed you do for another person, you wear his crown and you carry it into the future. You pay tribute to his life. And with every kind and comforting word that you speak to someone, you wear his crown and you honor his memory. Zecher Tzadik Livracha, the memory of a good and a righteous man, is forever a blessing to all who knew him. Amen. The eye never has its fill of seeing. These words from the book of Ecclesiastes. It is an eternal truth that young or old, those who depart this life never see enough of their world, never complete all of their tasks before they are called home. And how they yearned for yet another respite from that final summons, and how we yearned to have them close to us for another challenge in our lives, another joy, another precious moment together. Oh God, we ask you, be now with those whose hearts are broken, because whenever parting comes, it comes too soon. Console those who mourn. Console Raymond's family in these sad days, and be near to them, O God, even when your light seems distant. Sustain them till their time of healing. Please rise. El malei rachamim, shochein bamromim, hamtzei menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashchina, im kedoshim utehorim, kizohar harakia, mazhirim et nishmato shehalach leolamo began eden tehei menuchato ana bal harachamim hastirehu beseter kanafecha leolamim vayitzror bitzror hachayim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato, v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo, v'nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Raymond Bonn, who has now entered eternity. O God of mercy, we pray, may he find refuge in your eternal presence, and may his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance, and we say, Amen. Please be seated. The burial service will occur at Mount Olive Cemetery. Following that, the family will observe Shiva today and tomorrow at Debbie Ellis's home, 24917 Tunbridge Lane in Beechwood. And for those who might wish to honor Raymond's memory with a charitable contribution, the family suggests you might direct your generosity to the Geauga County Rescue Village.